The IMO is in session this week for the Maritime Safety Committee. This committee is the capstone for all IMO safety regulation, taking inputs from subcommittees, including those for the human element, training and watchkeeping, ship design and construction, and ship systems and equipment. Our institute has been involved in many issues under consideration this week, including co-sponsoring a proposal to revise the guidelines on cargo fumigation, changes to accident investigation reporting taxonomy, the new non-mandatory code for maritime autonomous surface ships, and a formal report to the IMO analysing the causes of submarine cable damage. To help me represent the interests of our members, I'm enormously grateful for the assistance of two institute members. Captain Barry Sadler is a marine pilot, and Mr. Diwari Peterside is a maritime lawyer currently on a short internship with our institute. So, Diwari, tell me, what led to you asking to join the delegation this week?
Okay. Hi, Chris. Okay. So I'm currently studying at the World Maritime University. I'm doing an MPhil in International Maritime Law and Ocean Policy, and I have a dissertation I need to write. It's on the transition of Nigerian seafarers, because I'm from Nigeria. The transition of Nigerian seafarers, the transition of their careers actually, in the era of mass code. And because I am a member of the Nautical Institute, I joined the Nautical Institute while I was at IMLI in Malta. I figured I could apply and see if I could get some practical insight, because as far as I know, all I know is stuff I've read in books. And I just wanted to, because Nautical Institute deals with maritime professionals and their careers and having their interests at heart, I thought I would apply and see if I could gain some insight. So when I did apply, I eventually was told that I would join the delegation at IMO. I was excited because I wasn't expecting that. I just thought I'd come work at the institute and probably shadow some people and just see how things worked. But when I was told I could also join the delegation at the IMO, that was amazing. So that's how it happened, really.
Thank you. And you've been amazing this week. Your knowledge of mass is fantastic.
Thank you.
And thank you for your input on that.
Thank you.
Barry, you volunteered a while back. How have you prepared for this week in that intervening period between volunteering and turning up?
Lots of reading, Chris, lots of reading. Reading the papers that are available on IMO docs, going through the IMO website as well. The IMO website's incredible. You've got a lot of explanations there about how things work and the processes that we go through at the IMO. So a lot of research into looking and refining how I thought the IMO worked, which has been an education over the last week, I can say. But refining how I knew how the IMO worked and reading the documents provided, so that I had a good idea of some of the debates that were going to come up whilst I was joining the Nautical Institute there.
That's brilliant. So you joined the team. What were your first impressions?
Size. I think you and I had a conversation about this on the first day. I had in my mind that when we went into a Maritime Safety Committee, there was going to be 40 or 50 of us in a little room, little committee room, sat around debating those things that were given to us in the papers. So when you walked me into the main hall and introduced me to the committee, my first impression was, wow, this is a big committee, it's a big room. There's going to be a lot of dynamics going on in this room. It's going to need a lot of management. That was an interesting part of that first day in particular, to see how the responses from the floor were managed by the chair himself. So my first impressions were big scale, big decisions, lots of input.
And how about you, Diwari?
Well, pretty similar to Captain Barry, actually. I've been to the IMO before while I was at IMLI, but I was an observer sitting at the back during one of the legal meetings. Sitting in the plenary was completely different. I felt like I was part of something bigger. And I just liked the dynamics that was going on between member states. And it was just very interesting to observe in real time and not from far away.
So you said about plenary, fascinating sitting
Yeah.
there. I asked you because of your specialty to go up and help out in the
did.
working group on maritime autonomous surface ships. What were the differences you noticed between plenary and the working group?
The working group is more detailed. They basically go into the nitty-gritty and the fine lines. They cross the T's and they dot the I's. And I think there are more interventions between the member states because they all have whatever interest they have. They need to express it explicitly within the text. So each member state or each representation was very specific with how they wanted the text to be presented. And I also found it interesting how they all had different ways of expressing themselves, but at the end of the day, would have to align with one particular expression. So it was just interesting to see the dynamics within the working group.
And Barry, you said about just the management of the room when you went off to the working group. How was that different for you?
I think the management of the room followed the same principle. What I found in the working group was that because you were not perhaps in the spotlight so much, that the states were more freer in what they said. The mass working group was chaired by a Scottish gentleman whose name eludes me, but he was very, very good at pulling information out of people because he would encourage people to speak. He would lighten the atmosphere every now and again with a bit of a quip, which I think had an effect on the whole room, and kind of people opened up a little bit more. When you're in plenary, you've got 150 people there, 150 people listening to what you say. And a lot of people have got prepared speeches in plenary so that they know and say the right thing. Whereas in the working groups, I feel that you're encouraged more to speak your mind, to speak on the hoof, to respond more accurately to something that's been said in the room, because you don't have that same kind of mass scrutiny, if you see what I mean.
Great pun, love it. But there's been a lot of agenda items. We talked briefly about mass, but you both spent time with me also in plenary. I think there's 21 agenda items. Anything in particular stood out for you in the agenda this week?
Well, the big one that stood out for me, I think that stood out for most people there was LRIT. Now, I realised that the Nautical Institute had papers in things that we were particularly interested in, but the LRIT debate showed me the different aspects of the IMO, which I kind of knew were there, but was sort of waiting to see them manifest themselves. And that's, the political aspect of the IMO and how the debate can move away from safety sometimes, away from even seafarers sometimes, and onto those interests that those individual flag states have. And to see that dynamic develop, particularly on the Thursday when we were there, when they started the debate on LRIT, was very, very interesting to see how the room itself, those 150 people in plenary, reacted to what was being said.
Yeah. Diwari, how about yourself? What stood out on the agenda for you?
Well, just to piggyback off what Barry has said, I mean, even with the reading of the reports today, I just found it interesting that even after all the work done in committee level, it got to the point where the member states couldn't agree on whether to approve or to step it down. And there was all that back and forth banter. I just found that interesting because I thought, okay, a lot of work has been put into this already. And we've reached a point where there's still political, situations where you can't agree on whether to move forward, approve the work, or just, move it to the next session. So that was interesting for me.
It sounds like you've seen a few things you weren't necessarily expecting. What was your biggest surprise with your week here at the IMO?
I just feel like it's difficult to get things done as quickly as I thought it would happen. It's difficult to appease everybody, and managing that is a skill in itself. And like Barry had said, the chair people who manage the dynamics in the room have impeccable skills. So it surprised me how difficult it is to get people, even after, like I said, after all the work has been done, to get people to align and agree on a particular topic or a situation.
Yeah. a lot of people do comment actually on their impression of how fast they think
Yeah.
we would like regulation to
Yes.
change against the reality of
Yes,
sitting in the room.
Absolutely.
And Barry's gone top surprise this week for what you were or weren't expecting.
Size and structure. Size and structure. I don't know why I wasn't expecting it, Chris, because when you think about it afterwards in hindsight, 176 member states, 50, 60 NGOs, it's going to be a big room, there's going to be a lot of people there. And so it's going to need structure for it to operate in the manner in which it does operate. So my biggest surprise really was size and structure, to go there, see 150 people debating in a room in what was generally an orderly fashion, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
People waited
It was.
until they were,
Yeah.
invited to speak. Nobody butted in.
Yeah.
It was a very, very cordial response,
Yeah.
albeit challenging to the chair at the end of the day. But I think size and structure for me really, learned that there's a lot of experience in the room.
There is.
Capture all that experience, 150 people with a massive amount of experience. You get into a meeting at work or something like that, and you've got 3 or 4 people around the table that are very experienced.
Yeah.
150 people around the table, bring massive amounts of experience into the room, and that's how these important decisions are made, hopefully from experience.
So you mentioned 176 flag states. There's, this week there's probably about 80 non-governmental and intergovernmental organisations. That means the Nautical Institute is just one small part. Do you think we make a difference?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because difference might not necessarily be made in the room. We're one organisation in a room full of 200 representatives, but by moving around the representatives outside of the room and opening up discussions over coffee, over lunch about things, you can still influence the way that these items are dealt with. Flag states are going to stick to their policies, but at the end of the day, it's not just about being that one organization in the room. It's about being an organization that's recognized and willing to go out there and engage with people, not necessarily in the plenary, but in the little meetings that surround it, including the working group.
Yes.
Yeah. What about, do you think we make a difference, Diwari?
Absolutely. I mean, the Nautical Institute, it's all about the people, isn't it? And it's about their interests, it's about their welfare, it's about the welfare of the seafarers. And I think that whatever voice the Nautical Institute has at the IMO is influential enough, as long as the Institute remains present at the IMO, at the meetings, like you said, at the little coffee meetings and the little networking that is made outside of the plenary. And also, like when we were in the mass working group, our presence there also mattered because, for example, I noted that we weren't even listed in the reports, of the mass group, and I had to go up there. I'm like, look, we were here. Why aren't we listed on the reports? So I think it's important that Nautical Institute is represented, and I think you make a difference.
That's great. It sounds like you've got some really lovely memories brewing from this week. What's your top memory?
This one, the being part of the mass working group is I wasn't expecting all of that. So it's for me, that's the topping on the cake for me, the icing on the cake for me. I thought I was just coming to get some inside experience with practical experience working in the Nautical Institute, and I find myself at the IMO, the mass working group. I'm like, what? How did that happen? So that is a memory I'm gonna take with me and obviously add to my CV.
Please do. You've been an amazing help this week with your expertise. And Barry, same question. Top memory this week?
I think top memory this week is the chair of the Maritime Safety Committee, and watching how he operated, particularly today with the LRIT and having to make those big decisions as to the consensus in the room. So my top memory is watching guys with that amount of organizational skill and the ability to not just read the room, but to control the room to a certain extent. I've come away really quite reassured that the way that business is conducted at the IMO is conducted in such an appropriate way. and that views are heard where they are necessary to be heard. And to be able to take a consensus of the room, sitting there, he must have to concentrate on pretty much everything that's said to him. I know he's got a secretariat to his left, who's giving him a prod every now and again. But I think that's my takeaway, and my favourite memory is watching him interact with the room.
So Barry, you're going to go back to work after this. Is your week here at the IMO going to make any difference to you career-wise back at work? How do you think this could influence you?
I think it's going to probably make me more aware of different flag state ships that I'm on, because I've heard those flag states speak at the IMO now. So I get on a Liberian flag ship. I've heard Liberians' opinion on things at the IMO. Now I get on a Malta flagship. I've heard Malta's opinion on what's happening at the IMO. So, you know, I don't necessarily have to read the ship to read the flag, because I've heard the flag. I've now got first-hand experience of their, you know, of their policies, of the way they feel about, you know, a certain aspect of what we're debating at the IMO. I can apply that to the ship.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes from a position of, you know, scrutiny, but other times from a position of understanding. So, I know what your flag state thinks about that. That's perhaps why you've decided to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. And you're currently studying, as you
am.
say, for your MPhil.
I am.
How is this going to affect your studies? And is there a message that you would say to other student and younger members of the Institute of how this week has affected you positively, hopefully not negatively?
No, not negatively. Very positive. Like I said, the reason I reached out to the Nautical Institute in the first place was because of my dissertation, and being in the room where the decisions and the policies are actually created has given me a different perspective on how to approach my project. So that's what I'll be taking away from my experience here today. And as for messages for the young members, be involved and just look for any opportunity that you can. The Nautical Institute is amazing. I mean, I've been part of you guys for part of the Nautical Institute, I should say that properly, for since I think 2024 or maybe 25. And I've attended some of the webinars. I think the most recent one was the AI and sustainability webinar. It was nice to have this as an opportunity as something to apply to see if I could get an opportunity out of it. And I have. So I would tell the younger people coming up to take advantage of the membership that you have here and just see where it takes you.
That's the other thing for me as well, of course, Chris, is I do a lot of teaching as well. So, you know, I can take a lot of what I've learned here at the IMO and apply it to my teaching, and you know, give students a better understanding of what the IMO is all about.
That's right. So when you go back to those students, what would be the message you would say to our members about how they're represented at the IMO?
I think a lot of what's something that Dee said resonates a lot with students as well, and that's the time it takes for papers to move through the IMO.
Yeah.
And I know seafarers get very, very frustrated with it, students in particular get frustrated with the fact that something has been proposed and it takes a long time for it to materialize in a convention, even longer for their own flag states to start to ratify on the ships, and to be able to explain the process to them and reassure them that although slow, it's a very, very particular process to arrive at that. I think that's a good message to get across to students. They're learning stuff because they have to, but the stuff that they have been told they have to know has come down through rigorous checks and rigorous debate at the IMO. Why do I need to know this? Because after a rigorous debate at the IMO, this is in your syllabus.
So was all the reading worth it before you turned up?
It certainly was, Chris. It certainly was.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me. I've really valued your counsel, a couple of little sidebars, little taps on the shoulder that you've both given me this week, and I'm enormously grateful for you both volunteering to come.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Chris. Thanks.
Thank you.